What's up, everybody? Welcome to GoJo with Mike Golick Jr. That is me. With me, as always, on Wednesdays, super producer Brandon Newman and Fox Sports writer and college football reporter Charlotte Wilder. Friends, what's going on?
Hi, guys.
Hey, Mike. Hey, Charlotte. We up in this thing.
We are up in this thing, and we appreciate you for also being up in this thing with us. Not like Pat McAfee said on that broadcast the other night when he talked about penetrating college football. Not quite that aggressive, just more normal way where we ask you to download, subscribe, rate, and review, leave us a 5-star rating, and check out the YouTube page. Did either of you guys hear that? The clip that started going around of Pat on the simulcast thanking college football fans for letting him penetrate them and be inside them all year?
Are you kidding me?
No, I shit you not.
I did not hear that. I feel like that man is somewhat of a broadcast hero in that he's just testing the limits. He's like, how far can I go before? Because he's so dynamic. Watching him on the pregame show for the championship, I looked at the TV and I just said, I was like, that man was made to be on television. Like that is what he was designed to do. And I really appreciate that he knows they really need him for that energy boost to the point where he's just like testing the limits every time he shows up.
That's 100% what it is. We talked about yesterday how Sean McVay can sort of do what he wants in this current situation with the Rams. If he wants to retire, if he wants to stay, if he wants to go do TV, because he's good and he has options. Pat McAfee, also good and has options, which means he can make every sexual innuendo under the sun and not get popped for it on these broadcasts.
Yeah, it's a goal I aspire to. I also think that if you're a woman and you get to that point, you're a superhero.
Oh, that is true. That's God tier status. Only then will we have true equality.
Exactly. When I can say that and really have it not be a problem, that's when we know that, like, women in sports.
Honestly, that was the least offensive thing said on that broadcast based on reaction. I just saw, and Brandon, you brought this up yesterday, but I hadn't seen the clip of David Pollack talking next to Nick Saban up there on the table when David Pollack said that Georgia has now taken over college football. And it was the Simpsons gif of, you can see right here where his heart breaks. You could see the moment where Nick Saban's new Joker origin story started. David put college football, like every other team besides Georgia, in so much danger with that statement.
Yes.
I think it's bold, though. I think it's challenging Nick Saban. I thought it was a little bit of
that's not what we need. We need to let sleeping Nick Sabans lie. You don't want to poke that guy?
I don't know. I feel like I find it bizarre that he's up there, to be honest, when he is an active coach of, quote, the best team in college football, which is obviously no longer true now that we have Georgia. I found it doubly weird that he was up there for, like, Georgia's ascendancy to the crown. It was like going to your own beheading and, like, having an out-of-body experience so you could watch it also and then, like, go home and still have to do your job. I don't know. I found it very weird, and I thought parts of it, I was like, that's sort of a brilliant choice to go with it, to put Saban up there for the Georgia game. But I was like, there's some stuff going down.
He seems like a spy. This seems like a spy move. Like, he could watch the film, but there's things that being boots on the ground that's like, he's just taking intel.
Oh, Brandon, dead on. This is 100% a double agent scenario where it is equal parts. One, he's up there because everything is Cruton. No matter what you are doing when you are Nick Saban, it is always Cruton. He is talking to somebody that might be able to eventually help the Alabama Crimson Tide get back to the place that he believes they belong. And part of that is also him being able to get information right there in the environment that we were talking about.
Wow.
Yeah. Cruton.
That's next level. Cruton.
Speaking of Inception and that, do you think anything can actually penetrate college football? I don't really think I think college football may be impenetrable.
Oh, yeah. No, this thing's built different right now. I was talking with somebody at the game about the conversation that always gets had about sports hierarchy and how the NBA sees itself positioned as just below the NFL. And it's like, actually, you're probably just positioned below both footballs, if we're being honest about the way this country consumes sports.
I think even when the game was as bad as the game was, for that to still be a huge event that, I did tune out at a certain point because I was like, it made me sad. I felt very sad for TCU. I didn't really want to see it. I will be honest. But I think that the beauty of other sports that aren't as massive as football, though, is that you get such a community out of it. Like football has its own communities within the sport and within the way you watch it. But I sort of love that the sports that aren't football have these like weird idiosyncrasies to their fandoms that as soon as you become the most popular start to become a little more difficult to hold on to.
Oh, you don't got to tell me twice. As a college lacrosse and PLL fan, big confirm. When you feel like you're a part of a little battalion as opposed to a full-blown army.
It's awesome.
It is awesome. Something else that I thought was awesome that I needed to ask you guys about the championship night before we get to, we got a great show coming up. We have, we normally do top 5, bottom 5 from the NFL weekend that was here. Since we have Charlotte here and since we are on the cusp of the NFL, we're coming off this college football championship. We're on the cusp of the NFL potentially naming the neutral site that the AFC championship game could be played at because of the fallout from the Bengals and Bills game that wasn't played due to the Damar Hamlin injury. There's potential that the AFC championship game could be played at a neutral site. And so in honor of all that, we are going to instead do the top 5 places to host a championship event. Since people always want to bring this up, since everyone always wants to talk about cold weather places versus some of the tried and true spots, we've each got a list. None of us know the other's list, and we are going to present them to the class here. We've also got a game of true truths and a lie that we're going to play with NFL GMs because we are in talking season in this week leading up to the NFL playoffs. But before we get to that, I have to ask you guys the most important question from the national championship the other night, because I threw this out there and I did not think this was a controversial take, but I saw some pushback. Is Pentatonix cool? Pentatonix sang the national anthem for the college football playoff national championship. And I'm a sucker for any sort of a cappella group, any sort of choir. And so I heard that and I was like, wow, chills. These guys don't miss. Brandon, I want to start with you because you're making the funniest face at me right now. Am I off base on this?
Well, I was going to ask, was that who was up there?
Yes, that was who was up there. I know because the guy in the middle did look like Pat McAfee, just singer Pat McAfee.
He kind of looked like Pat McAfee, Sam Smith, and then you had he was the only white man in blue, and then you had the 2 females in 2 women in white, and then the 2 black gentlemen in red. And I was like, okay, what type of Hunger Games district shit is going on here? Like, I don't know what I'm watching, but they got it on the big stage. And this is right after that young lady was doing the signing, like the ASL. Like, I don't know what I'm watching. They sound fine, but it feels a little racist.
Did you know of Pentatonix before that?
Yeah, I've heard of them. Like I've been to Lululemon, so I get it.
I can say if you've been to the mall around the holidays, chances are you have heard Pentatonix before.
So I'm just going to answer your question for you, Mike. No, Pentatonix they're not cool because a cappella in general isn't cool. And here, I'm going to go full Inception with this. You ready?
I love this.
If you went to a college that had a prominent a cappella scene, unless you were in one of those a cappella groups, a cappella was not cool. But you had to go to the concerts anyway because you usually knew at least one person in it. But the real reason you went to the concert was because you loved a cappella and you just couldn't admit it. And everybody pretended they hated a cappella and didn't want to go to the concerts. And everybody's sitting there just like vibing, being like, how is this only their voices? So Pentatonix is like the NFL of a cappella college football. And it is therefore inherently uncool and I might argue, impossible not to love, but no one will admit it.
So the only reason
you guys can clip that for me, by the way, and I will post that because that might be the best take I've ever had.
Charlotte's deep dive into a cappella groups, which is exceptional. It sounds like grounded in a lot of experience. Like, are you going to name names of
personal.
I was just going to ask.
Deeply personal.
The thing I'm not sure of is, were you friends with someone, or was that a deep cover for you being in an a cappella group in college?
No. Look, if I could change one thing about me, and people who don't like me probably won't like this answer because they'll be like, what if you change your personality? It would be that I could sing.
Oh,
it would be that I could sing. If I could, I can't sing. Like
Charlotte?
every once in a while, I'll give it a try. But like, if I could sing,
I said if I could exchange the little athletic ability, like whatever amount of athletic ability I was blessed with, if I could walk into the God store and exchange it for the exact same amount of singing ability, I would make that trade every day and twice on Sunday. I was backstage at a Rascal Flatts concert one time, and Dan and Shay were the opening act for them, and it was somebody's birthday back there, and so they had a cake for them in like the vibe room, and as they were getting ready to light the candles, one of the guys started just under his breath singing happy birthday to no one else in particular. He was like warming up, and it was beautiful and it was perfect. And I was like, he's not doing that for anybody. That's just his walking around voice. That's his garden variety. I'm in the shower, I'm taking a shit voice, and it's an angel. And I'm so jealous of it.
Yeah, I wish first of all, do you sing on the toilet?
No, but I've gotten in the habit of playing a lot of music on the toilet. I can't, just because of the forces at play, it's a lot harder to sing there. You can't have it going...
your diaphragm for something else.
Yeah, it's going opposite directions there.
I made a poop joke before we even started recording too. I'm on a roll today. I think part of the reason that I pretended to hate a cappella was because I couldn't sing and I was deeply jealous. All I really wanted was to be up there. Also, probably I'm such a ham that like, if I could sing, I would just be like, I'm going to be a pop star. And even though I like can't dance too, so there's a lot going up. But no, I had friends who were in it. And I think I was just a little resentful that I couldn't do it. And I loved it.
My only pushback was and maybe this is just me being deeply nerdy and not reading the room. I thought Pitch Perfect made a cappella publicly acceptable. Like I thought after that movie, we did the thing where now we were all comfortable accepting this for what it was. And now based on your guys' faces, I'm realizing that it's just a me thing. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, that's that part of you that just embraces all of the pumpkin spice. Like that's that.
Yeah.
That's that basic.
And we love it. We love it.
Yeah. Yeah,
but that is what it is. We
don't want you to change either.
No.
See, but this is my thing: is an a cappella group is not that many standard deviation points away from a choir, and everybody loves a choir.
A choir is
like for years. I
feel like Brandon and I are on one. I feel like we're trying to figure out how to explain.
I know. Listen.
It's like we have to. It's like we're parents who have to have the birds and the bees conversations with their kids.
You guys are trying to have the sex a cappella talk with me right now.
Yeah, we're trying to be like, here's how it actually is. There's no stork.
And as someone who, Mike face, as someone who dabbles in trying to harmonize at times, I'm interested in the concept of just not being able to do it at all because it just seems like something that you just like dancing, like a nice white man dancing. Like you just give it a shot. You know what I mean? Like you just gotta start moving and letting the things happen because it's like there's no real wrong answer. Now, if you're a part of a group, and especially an a cappella group, there is wrong answers. And I am one of those guys that sits back. I maybe I mentioned this on the podcast before, but my aunt, when I was like 8, told me my top was I can sing on a cruise ship. And I thought that was really good. And then I got older and realized, she was shitting on me. But I went to a lot of a cappella concerts at Notre Dame. Mike, do you remember the a cappella group at Notre Dame?
I don't remember their names, no.
The Undertones.
Ooh.
Okay.
Yeah.
The Undertones, and they have that ND moniker in the middle, right? They have a great Christmas album. I suggest you go check it out. But I do feel like when I'm listening to them, I was like, I could do some of those. But there's training involved. Like when Mike took guitar lessons senior year, I took voice lessons, and I was doing all kinds of like dumb, stupid stuff like that. But the fact that Mike thinks that it's cool to be in that group, like how cool is being an altar boy? Tell me. I don't know.
Oh no, listen, an altar boy requires zero skill, none. You just take directions and wear a flowing robe. Being
I
in
do
a,
think. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say that being in an a cappella group actually requires skill. It requires talent. It requires what Brandon talked about, hard work. And so I don't see that in any way, shape, or form similar to being an altar boy.
I just figured out what it is. First of all, I think being in a choir is very cool. I really do. I think it's inherently cool if you are in a choir. And because I'll come back around to that. But the reason that acapella, and then maybe we could talk about sports, but this feels like sports. The reason that acapella isn't cool is because everybody who is in an acapella group is so up their own ass about it and like harmonizes for fun in the dining hall and like does these faces where they're like, look how amazing we are. And then puts up like, there's a lot of acapella TikTok that I watch, which I love, but I'm also like, these faces are so punchable because they're so pleased with themselves.
Charlotte, that's exactly why we looked at Mike sideways when he said that stuff about Pitch Perfect. We're like, did you not see the satire laced in there that all of these people were?
I understand like, that it was
getting stuffed in a locker. Like it's like not where the scene is.
But Mike thought we'd come full circle on that.
So Charlotte, what you're describing sounds like this is if we were to do the is that blank is to blank as blank is to blank, like the 2.2 thing.
The ratio.
That's the word.
No.
Yeah.
Is it?
I think so.
We're gonna ride with it.
Acapella is to acquire as CrossFit is to just normal weightlifting.
Yes.
Yes.
Yep.
Like
1000%. You
nailed
that.
To this while CrossFitting. I don't even know what that's called, but while you're doing your jumps and your whatever the thing is,
muscle ups.
The cult-like aspect of it that just makes it like, why can't you just be normal about it?
Like you said, once you said it was making it too much of your personality, that's generally the thing that gets thrown on CrossFitters, as opposed to just someone who goes and lifts weights to supplement whatever else they're doing in their lifestyle. So I understand.
And look, if that works for people, I'm probably just jealous. I get hives when I think about being a part of a group that feels too groupy. So I respect people who can do it.
Shout out to the CrossFit listeners of this podcast at GoJo Show
and
on
acapellas.
Twitter. And if you sing in an acapella group, tweet us at GoJo Show on Twitter and show us some of your fine acapella work because I will be there to support it, even if
I love it. I don't necessarily think it's cool, but I think it's cool.
Russell Wilson.
Anyway, I feel like a human centipede of an argument right now.
But you can't acapella by yourself. Like you're right.
No, you're in a group.
It's a group. It's a group.
Send us your group work.
Send us your group work. Now that we finished the acapella sex ed talk, which piggybacked off the Pat McAfee sex ed talk on the bulk simulcast of the national championship, let's play Two Truths and a Lie and talk about sports here for a quick second. Just because this week, so Monday of this week is usually referred to as Black Monday. I think we're calling it that again. There was a period where we weren't calling it and Black Friday those things again, and then now people just started doing it again. So I think we're there. It's the day that the NFL coaches all tend to get fired. And we saw Cliff Kingsbury get fired. We had seen the Tennessee Titans move on from their offensive coordinator. Scott Turner, I saw, just got fired yesterday as the offensive coordinator for the Washington Commandos. And so you've got all this going on, which means that we have GMs talking in front of microphones right now. And so I want to read you guys 3 statements from NFL GMs and try and figure out which 2 we believe are true and which one of these is the lie. So this first statement is from the Detroit Lions general manager here. It's something Holmes, which is not on the page I had pulled up here. Brad Holmes, excuse me. The GM for the Detroit Lions is Brad Holmes. And he said about Jared Goff, quote, I think it's a lot easier to get worse at quarterback than it is to get better in this league. So I think what Jared has done this year, he captained the ship of a top 3 offense. He was top 10 statistically in most passing categories. And again, how we know we approach the draft, we're never going to turn down a good player. So if it's a football player we love, we're going to make sure every stone is turned. But I do think Jared has proven to everybody that he is a starting quarterback for us. So
do you want us to weigh in as we go, or do you want us at the end to say which are true and which is a lie?
I'll give you all 3 so we can do the rendering here at the end. So that is Brad Holmes, the general manager of the Detroit Lions. Up next is Ryan Poles, the GM of the Chicago Bears. And he was talking about their quarterback, Justin Fields, who in his second year started to really grow and ascend, was one of the exciting quarterbacks in the league, and talked about their end of the year conversations. He said, we had good conversations. I'm excited for the direction he's going. As I mentioned before, he knows where he has to improve. I think he mentioned that the other day. We're excited about his development and where he goes next. He showed ability to be impactful with his legs. There's flashes of his arm. Now, if we can put that together, I think we have something good. We're going to do the same we've always done. We're going to evaluate the draft class, and I would say this, I would have to be absolutely blown away to make that type of decision in reference to drafting a quarterback with the number 1 overall pick that they acquired when the Texans won this weekend. So that is number 2. The last statement in Two Truths and a Lie was from none other than Jerry Jones, the Dallas Cowboys, as Trey Wingo say, Grand Poobah and master of space, time, and dimensions. He was on 105.3 The Fan in Dallas on Tuesday and was asked whether a wild card loss to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers this coming Monday night would impact Mike McCarthy's status as their head coach. And he said, quote, no, I don't even want to. No, that's it. I don't need to get into all the pluses or minuses. I've got a lot more to evaluate Mike McCarthy on than this playoff game. So between Brad Holmes, Ryan Poles, and Jerry Jones, Two Truths and a Lie, which of these statements are we calling bullshit on?
May I go?
By all means.
Brad Holmes is telling the truth.
All right.
Ryan Poles is lying, and Jerry Jones is telling the truth.
Wow. Okay.
And I know you don't think I don't think that you were expecting that.
No, I was very much not expecting that. So why do you think that Ryan Poles is the one lying here?
Because if you look at what all three of them said, okay, see, my gold standard of GMs talking about quarterbacks and decisions is Steve Keim of the Arizona Cardinals in 2019 when he said, he was asked about Josh Rosen, and he said, Josh Rosen is our quarterback right now for sure. And that to me was the most brilliant way of not lying, because he said he is right now for sure. For sure. Which does not have that. He doesn't even, I did a whole segment on this when I was at Sports Illustrated and had a Sports Illustrated TV show, which is sort of hilarious. But anyway, and it, because it's the most brilliant way of covering your ass, not having to say anything and not fully offending anyone, except that if you understand GM speak, if I'm Josh Rosen, the minute I hear that, I'm like, I'm out. Like, this is not done. I'm done. And that one was obvious. A lot of people could have seen that and been like, yeah, okay, Josh doesn't have a job here anymore. But I think whenever a GM is too enthusiastic, which Ryan Poles, he said too much. Yeah. I think that when you're lying, you tend to give too many details. You tend to over explain yourself because you really want, it's like if you're lying to your friend that you can't go to dinner, you're like, oh, I just had this work call come up and the people are in Pacific time and like one guy couldn't make the call earlier. So instead of, if you were actually telling the truth and a work call came up, you just be like, hey, I had a work call come up. I'm so sorry. Let's reschedule. And so so there's that. And I think Ryan Poles said too much. By the way,
this is great advice from Charlotte Wilder on how to be better lying to your friends about breaking plans.
Yeah, or anything. If you want to lie, think about how you would say it if you weren't lying and realize that you would say less than you're about to say and then say less. Great advice. I do think, though, that if you look at what Brad Holmes said and what Jerry Jones said, they didn't make any promises and they didn't qualify anything. He just said that Jared Goff did a really great job this year and that if there's someone in the draft, we'll see. He wasn't really saying anything one way or another. Jerry Jones was telling the truth because he said it's not the wild card game. I have a bunch of other stuff to evaluate. He didn't say he wouldn't fire him. He just said it wouldn't come down to the wild. It means that he knows what he's going to do right now. As of January 11th or 12th, whenever this comes out, Jerry Jones knows whether he's going to fire Mike McCarthy or not. But it's not going to be because of the wild card game. So that leaves Ryan Poles, who's saying we'd have to be really blown away to take a quarterback at number 1. And I don't think that's true because I think that the Bears, Justin Fields, I think is an unbelievable talent, but the Bears got the number 1 pick in the draft. So like something's not working. I would not be shocked if after he said that, it's because they're going to have an about face and be like, wait a second, actually, maybe it's our quarterback, which I don't think it is. And I don't think that's fair, but I think that's GM speak for we might be bullshitting you.
So, all right, this is fascinating on a number of levels here. Number one, I was thinking of my all-time favorite sports, like not quite lies, but close to lies, like you talked about with Steve Keim. We obviously have the recent example of Jim Harbaugh at Michigan saying, no one can know the future, but I plan to enthusiastically be the head coach of Michigan next season. Leaving himself that caveat there. It does make me think of my favorite graphic ever concocted on the college football internet, the Penn State Super Bowl graphic, where it says in all big bold letters, a Penn State player has appeared in every Super Bowl. And then in fine print right below it, it says, except for 5 since 1967. It is a Hall of Fame.
I've never seen that.
I will make sure I text it to both of you guys. It is priceless in its presentation here. Again, you can see it's every Super Bowl. And then the sprint is so small below it that says except for 5 since 1967. So you're right. In the analysis of that, it's the right way to look at these things here. I was shocked because Jerry Jones seems to be the one where obviously we look at this and we say this is an uncomfortable situation for Mike McCarthy because Sean Payton is starting to do actual interviews. And all we've known and talked about since last year when Sean Payton retired from the Saints was this eventual reunion with Jerry Jones, a guy that he knows super well. Obviously, the Parcells connections, all these things that lead back to Jerry Jones and our thought that he might do that. But I think you're right, Charlotte. I discounted that thought that it wasn't going to be about just this game, that it was likely going to be about, what's the likelihood that Sean would take the job? If Sean's willing to come in and take the job and they lose the wild card game, he's probably going to get popped. Hell, he could win the wild card game. And if they lose the next one, there's still a chance he might do some wild stuff here. So I actually think I agree with you. The only thing that I would say I'm different on is the Ryan Poles thing. I'm wondering if this is a lie in the name of gamesmanship, where it's, hey, we'll think about it. If someone blows us away, we take a quarterback at that spot, knowing full well you've got the Texans there who are going to be in the hunt for a quarterback. And everyone's thinking, well, the Bears would trade back, they would get picks. And it's like, no. We want to let you know how much we love this pick and how this might be a quarterback for us if we evaluate this player and we think it's right. When in actuality, I think this might just be them doing clever business and trying to drive up the asking price of that pick.
Yeah.
But also, based on Charlotte's rationale, I think Brad Holmes and Ryan Poles are both oversharing and being a little.
They're saying too much.
Yeah, about their quarterback. Like I would expect Ryan Poles to say nothing about Justin Fields and like him pulling shit together. Like leave him alone. Like right. Y'all like don't even speak on him. Like do the Jerry Jones thing. It was like like whatever Jerry Jones word vomit that we just said is the truth, right? When it comes to how he's handling with McCarthy, because I think he's got a bigger issue with Dak there, and there's all kinds like who's going to be the person that saves this over there in Dallas. I don't know, but Brad Holmes, he's right about Jared Goff. He did all those things. But in that, he was almost too detailed running down his resume of the things he's done while being with the Detroit Lions as if he is weighing scales out. Because I do think the Lions are ascending. And with that, there's a level of cutthroatness that we're not seeing amongst this team led by a bunch of players or coaches that used to be players, that there's still some blood in the water. This is still an NFL team here.
I think that could also be him selling Goff to another team that might need him in exchange for. I don't know. I think that both of them said too much, but I think that Ryan Poles was more detailed in what he said he would do about it. Because Brad Holmes was sort of like, we'll see what happens in the draft. And Ryan Poles was like, if somebody blows us away, we will not probably maybe take him at number 1, which looking back, I think you're right, Mike. I think that seems more like draft gamemanship than it does a reality, because I also personally would let Justin Fields cook. But
right, like the whole thing about this season was the Bears very clearly selling off defensive parts, getting rid of a guy like Roquan Smith, who just got paid by Brandon's favorite team in the Baltimore Ravens. Big money coming out, but they were selling off all those guys. They wanted to be bad. They brought over Chase Claypool as like one bit of acknowledgement that they wanted to give Justin Fields someone to throw the ball to that might work out for them other than their tight end. But in general, I think we all looked at the Bears' offensive grade as incomplete. Justin Fields was running for his damn life and somehow making it look awesome. So and as a prospect, I mean, that was the number 2 quarterback in most people's estimations behind Trevor Lawrence for the majority of his life. Obviously, people ended up making mistakes in that draft towards the Zach Wilson end of things and some of the other parts of this.
I will never. Yeah.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I just was so pissed when they took Zach Wilson before Justin Fields.
Like, I was doing a draft show that year, and I'm pretty sure I was clear. Justin Fields was the second best quarterback in that class in my eyes and should have gone as the second guy off the board in that spot. And the first year under Matt Nagy, that was a team and a coaching staff that seemed actively opposed to their quarterback having success. So a lot like the Trevor Lawrence experience down in Jacksonville, you had a player that was just for the really first time being coached in a way that wanted to actually work with his skill set. The difference is the Jags spent a bunch of money to get guys around Trevor Lawrence, and the Bears actively sold off parts during the season to try and make that team bad to get exactly where they're at right now. I know they will never cop to tanking, but we all looked and saw what was going on with that team.
Yeah, my issue with the Bears, though, are you finally drafted the thing that you've been missing for decades in a quarterback that could save your franchise. And you have him. He's wearing the jersey. He looked great. He broke all the effing records for rushing like a Lamar Jackson would when you weren't even expecting to do so. The Detroit Lions have been trying to get over the hump of winning, right? They just had to finish with a winning season. All the morale and stuff is there. For them to even attempt, them being the Bears, to even attempt to alienate a young player like Justin Fields just seems like malpractice.
I think that might be why I think they could do it, because I'm so jaded by these teams and by these GMs making such horrible decisions that I'm like, the example I always use was the 2016 wildcard game in the MLB postseason when, for the Orioles, Buck Showalter did not pitch their best closer, Zach Britton. And I was like, what the actual heck is going on here? Because if you're telling me that you saved his arm for the next game, that's ridiculous, because you didn't get there because you didn't play him. And that was one of them that stands out as one of the most egregious examples of like, maybe the people that I would like to think are smarter than I am and better at this and have been doing this professionally, whereas I've just been watching them do it, know what they're doing. And then sometimes you're like, oh, they just straight up don't, or they're just being dumb, or something is blinding them to something that they cannot get out of their own way. And that is what I'm afraid could happen in Chicago, as much as I don't want it to.
I think it's also, Charlotte, to that point, it's like growing up and being adults and realizing that your parents didn't have all the answers. They're just figuring stuff out on the fly. There can be some of that. There's some of being too close to the forest for the trees. There's also looking for who gets to take credit for what. And it's worth remembering that Justin Fields was not a Ryan Poles pick. He came in and inherited this quarterback. He's not the one that drafted him. And so there's always that in the background of this. That's what's interesting about the Brad Holmes situation, is because Brad Holmes was a part of the Rams staff and was integral in drafting Jared Goff with the first pick back in 2016. So those guys have some history together. Now, if I'm the Bears, there's no way I'm moving on from Justin Fields. I think as a prospect, what you've got with him is so great you can afford to trade back and get fixes for a lot of the other things on your roster that you need help with, because right now you're in that spot and he can get you out of trouble. For the Lions, I think there's an argument that you could make to bring Jared Goff back next year, but he's also only a $10 million cap hit if they do release him this offseason and decide they want to draft a young guy or go after another veteran free agent and try and take that next step from plucky team that almost made the postseason that wowed us in the back half to legitimate bona fide contender. Their offensive coordinator, Ben Johnson's also going to be a guy that gets some head coaching interviews now and was a huge weapon for that team. So I can see a little bit more of both sides of those arguments there with the Lions. The Bears, I can't see it. The Cowboys, I'm almost expecting the worst case scenario for them at this point. And I'm expecting Jerry Jones to try and swing big at Sean Payton, because I don't know a world where that guy's going to sit idly by and watch this person that we've all seen and believed is the apple of his eye go and coach for somebody else when he could have had him.
No, Jerry gets what Jerry wants.
Yes.
I think with the Bears situation, I'm praying I'm wrong.
Yeah.
I really want them to do the right thing. And I hope that this is the exception to, like, I've just seen so many times where I'm like, no, they wouldn't. Why would they ever do that? And then a team does it. And I'm like, and I'm really hoping that you're right, that they get the help that Justin Fields needs, as opposed to going out and trying to make a statement by doing something really dumb.
With that in mind, Charlotte, two truths and a lie. What GM is in that position from telling the truth to everyone? It's just like,
they're all lies. They're all lies, and they're all the truth in some capacity.
Yeah. Colorful lies.
Damn. Stay woke on that one. They're all lies and they're all some truths in some capacity. By the way, while I do think that Jerry Jones would absolutely pull the trigger, it is sort of insane objectively to think about. Mike McCarthy has gone 12-5 in back-to-back years and won the NFC East last year, has taken him to the postseason for consecutive years. And this is a very real possibility that I think we could see him fired in the name of bringing Sean Payton back, which we don't even know what kind of decision that would be at this point with Sean Payton and what he would be without Drew Brees. So all these things, very interesting. We are in talking season, which means, to Charlotte's point, we are in lion season, or at least very colorful truth season. And we get to keep an eye on all that. Now it is time, though, to get to stadium ranking season. So again, normally we do top 5, bottom 5 each and every week on Tuesdays. National championship bumped it back. We get to do it with our friend Charlotte Wilder, but this time in honor of the AFC Championship game, in honor of what we had in the college football playoff. We want to do top 5 host cities for championship events here. And so we all made a list. And guys, we didn't have like a set criteria, but I kind of thought about all of it, right? I thought about the quality of the stadium that you would be having this championship event in. I thought of the nightlife that you would have for people involved. I thought about the transportation and hospitality aspect of all these places. How easy is it to get to stuff? What's the airport situation like? And so all of those things kind of factored in. We didn't specify really what sport even this championship event would be for, because I think it's sort of universal. So, Charlotte, I want to let you go first, since it is Wilder Wednesday here. Top 5 championship host cities according to Charlotte Wilder here. What do we got?
So I did something really obnoxious, and did, like, when the teacher says, you can make any sort of creative project, it should be written, or it should be like a drawing, but I made a video because I did this by sport.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And I know that's not where so I can do the traditional, like, the best football places. I have a list of that too, but I thought it would be interesting to say what I think are the best cities for the major sports, if you would indulge me.
By all means.
Thank you so much. So I think that the Super Bowl, the best place for it is Miami. And I say that knowing that the traffic was absolutely miserable, but I loved the vibe. I absolutely loved the vibe of Super Bowl week in Miami. It was fun. It was playful. There's a beautiful beach. It felt it felt like the city retained enough of itself while also making it clear that there isn't a Super Bowl happening. I think my issue with the Super Bowl in LA is that if you hadn't seen the banners flying from a few street lamps, you wouldn't have known there was a Super Bowl there, because there was also probably like an awards show there, and it's like, yeah, LA. I don't like LA as a championship city, because I just don't. I think it's too. There's too much else going on, and it's too exciting already, and it's too big, and it's like, if you go to Houston for a Super Bowl, you're like, oh shit, I'm here for a Super Bowl. So, and I like that vibe. But so I would say Super Bowl Miami, because I love that. I think the college football playoff the national championship should always be in New Orleans. I think college football and New Orleans are perfectly suited to each other. They're chaotic.
Amen.
It doesn't make total sense. It's beautiful. It's pageantry. There's an element of like mysticism to both of them. I think that the best place for an MLS Cup final would be Austin.
Oh yeah.
I think Austin with the new team. Well, I guess it's not that new anymore, but Austin would be an amazing city for a championship, but it couldn't be for football. I mean, I guess you could do it at UT, but it's not that. I think that the Q2 stadium there would be perfect for a final. I think that the NHL Stanley Cup best city is Vegas because I've done that there and it was perfect. MLB, I think it's home. It's going back. I didn't say what other city NHL would be because I don't really care. Sorry. But the MLB would be LA and Boston, which is obnoxious for reporters and everybody covering it.
Of
and
course.
The players, but whatever. And NBA, New York City.
Wow.
Imagine an NBA final, and again, the other team, whatever, at Madison Square Garden. I was told by my fiance I was not allowed to say Boston for that one.
Yeah, good answer.
Yeah,
good answer.
I think your list based on the sport, I don't really see a lot of holes in it.
No,
thank you so much.
You hit pretty much every city but one that I would have on my list, just ranking them overall. So I
can't wait to hear your list, Mike.
Well, I say I'm a very big fan of all those spots. I think the sport-specific nature of that works for all of those because you also want places where fans of that sport are going to feel comfortable. And I think that's something when you talked about the CFP, that was decidedly not the case in LA, right? Everything's spread out, all of the geographic and regional differences that make that. And it's just, LA's not a college football town. We all know that. It's not a slight. It just is what it is. This is a place that's very different. So Brandon, why are you making a face?
Because USC is the biggest college football team in Los Angeles. That's the only reason I made a face, but continue.
I mean,
but I was there for the Rose Bowl and I didn't know it was happening.
Right.
We drove through Pasadena and it's like, is there a game here today? I don't know.
Brandon, USC is the biggest team in college football. When they played UCLA, no one came and watched that game. It was a rivalry game where both teams were ranked and no one was there. Like it's early 2000s SC was able to do something very powerful, which is be the biggest show in town. They were star-studded. They were the place that celebrities wanted to be. Like, yeah, that shit was popping off. But again, it's like Miami. I've heard the guys in the Levitard show talk about this. Like, Miami's not a college football city. Miami's got too much stuff going on, much the same way LA does. Like, college football is for places off the beaten path that have one thing to hold up as their own. So that's my only thing there. Like, it's not a slight. LA's got a bunch of cool shit. It's like Nashville. Like, of course, Nashville doesn't give a damn about the Vanderbilt in college football.
Speaking of that, though, yeah, the Harvard of the SEC. Mike, I'm gonna let save you for last.
All right.
Because the only other cities that you did not have on my list, Charlotte, were so I had New Orleans. I went down there for a bachelor party during the women's Final Four, and it was electric.
Yeah.
Okay. It was electric. San Francisco. I really liked San Francisco. I liked it as a Super Bowl. I liked it as a Super Bowl city.
Really?
Why you guys?
You're the only person I've ever heard say you liked it as a Super Bowl city.
100%.
Okay, so here's the thing. I like you guys talk about being close. I like for these big events where like the activities are in one place and the game is actually in a whole other place.
Okay.
Because that helps with the traffic. That helps with the concentrated of like where people need to be based on the day. So I did appreciate that. So that I like the vibe of San Francisco. Excuse me. And then Indianapolis is a good place for a championship. Mm-hmm. It's where the national championship has always been. I think it's like if you've been out there, the city is set up for people to be outside and inside, the way you can like walk from hotel to hotel and these what do you even call those?
Skyways.
Sky tunnels.
Yeah.
Skyways.
Sorry, not a thing.
Skyways.
That Sky Tunnel
Can't have a
works.
tunnel in the sky.
But also, here's my last. Seattle. I like Seattle as a sports town. I like Seattle as a walking town. You have to walk to that stadium, which is beautiful. And that stadium is amazing and beautiful and right on the water. There's not a bad seat in the house. I think there's something about Seattle that's missing their sports. So anytime any sports happen, they get all excited about it as if it's the biggest shit that has ever happened. So I love Seattle as a location for a championship.
I love Seattle as a sports town. I'm with you. I got to go out and cover a UW game and spent time out there. You're right. Like that whole setting by the water is immaculate. Great vibes, awesome sports town, plenty of unique stuff. Obviously, Seattle and everywhere in the Pacific Northwest is that very like wonderful style of weird that we all appreciate. So I don't hate that as an answer. I don't know. I just don't know logistically about that city all that much. I haven't experienced a big event like that in that city. And so I don't know the personal experience. I won't knock it. This is what I will say. The biggest thing with my top 5, if your temperature drops below freezing at any meaningful time, I don't want you hosting a championship event.
I knew you were going to say that, Mike. I knew that was going to be your angle. I knew it.
I don't think cold weather cities should get to host championship events. I went to the Super Bowl in Minneapolis, and it was fine until
that was one of the worst weeks of my life.
Charlotte, every morning I would get up to go do radio in the mall food court outside of the Cinnabon store, and I would shower to wake myself up, and when I would walk from where we parked in the IKEA parking lot into the Mall of America, my beard would freeze over completely. It is not okay. It is not okay.
Horrible. I could go into detail.
Well, I thought it was brilliant, Charlotte, that you mentioned New York for basketball. Because I do think that it is special. Like, that's a special place. Like the Big East Championship when it was in New York all the time. Like, that was
It is. Fun. It still is. It's the best. I covered it last year. It was and you can just take the subway.
Yes.
Like, New York is built for congestion. New York is built to have a bajillion people in it all the time. And it's like, really, really passionate about that one.
Which is, I would say, a great caveat. If your city is warm during, like, if you're in Indianapolis for something warm going on, awesome. I don't think the college football playoff championship should be there. I was there last year. I had to walk on a sheet of ice to go to St. Elmo's. Just, again, love Indy. Want to go back and see the Kurt Vonnegut Museum. I don't need a championship there. 5-1 for me. Miami number 5. Charlotte, you mentioned my biggest gripe there, the road system. It pissed rain the one Super Bowl I was there and flooded the place. Miami feels damp and seems like it peaked in 1996. But overall, it's a good time for a championship. Tons of places to go out. The stadium's, good and accommodating for all that stuff. So, and again, warm, even if you get the random bouts of Florida rain. Number 4, Houston. All the same warm reasons, everything's in one area. It is an absolute triumph of efficiency when it comes to the nightlife, your hotel, proximity to the stadium, having it all right there. The CFP's there next year. Can't wait. Bart Scott voice. Number 3, where the Super Bowl is this year, Phoenix. I think having Old Town Scottsdale as a place to go out. Brandon, you mentioned your enjoyment of separation of church and state. You got Old Town Scottsdale where you can go do all the debauchery. You got the stadium in Glendale. You got the rest of Scottsdale in the middle. You got the waste management that's going to be at TPC the same weekend this year. It's a place that's built to host a party. It's incredibly warm during the hours you need it to be warm. I know winter, it's a little bit different. The desert thing. You get the whole picture. Number 2, Charlotte, you mentioned it, Vegas. Vegas should be a staple. It is an incredible place to do anything. The draft, the championship, you name it. Vegas is just built to party, wicked efficient, great new stadium there. Allegiant is awesome. As someone who's going to go see Taylor Swift play there in March, can't wait to see how that show renders inside that giant hockey puck. It's going to be awesome. And the number 1, easiest choice in the world is New Orleans. That place should never go more than 2 years without hosting a championship of some sort. Charlotte, you hit on it. It is my favorite thing about New Orleans is it's approachable Vegas. You don't got to feel like you're doing too much. You can go out there in shorts and a t-shirt. We all acknowledge that because we're down by the swamp, we're going to sweat our asses off. We're going to drink. We're going to eat really well. Everything's going to be within walking distance, and we're all going to have a blast. It can fit college football in that way because obviously it's got close ties to LSU and the team down there, Tulane right in New Orleans. It's got something for, I've been to NBA All-Star down there and everyone has a great time. Obviously, it's got Bourbon Street. It's got all the stuff around there. New Orleans is the grand champion of hosting a championship event by far.
I think both of you, I love how true to yourselves you both stayed with those lists. I also think I wanted to shout out Houston also. I think that the one of the best Super Bowl experiences I've had was Houston. Also, did we meet each other down there?
We did meet at the Houston
Was
Super
that the
Bowl.
first time we ever met?
That was the first time we had met, and I also hung out with Brandon a lot that week because there was the one hotel bar where everyone in sports media came to interact. And so that was where we met.
Oh
my God. When you
God.
said the proximity, I was like, oh yeah, Houston was like, it was like college if you're like, your class was right outside of your dorm. It was like, okay. And it was also like going to work with all your friends. It was very...
It was, Brandon, you're right. Really... It was like college. You had all of your best friends right around you in close proximity.
That was fun.
That was the weekend I introduced you to Katie.
I would say I met Charlotte and Katie Nolan both for the first time at the Houston Super Bowl.
I was going to say we hung out. Did we meet Brandon?
I didn't meet you, Charlotte. I wish I would have.
Are we sure? Because because I was hanging out with Mike and Katie. How were you not there?
I was didn't know.
Oh, Charlotte, you know what it is Brandon and I hung out at that hotel lobby. Me, you, and Katie met, and you and I really first met over at the convention center where Radio Row was down in Houston. That much I do remember because they had protesters for male circumcision on the sidewalk, and they were wearing white jumpsuits with red paint on their crotches.
I forgot about that. Wow. Oh my God.
Yeah.
And Fox had the Super Bowl, and I was working for Fox, so we had like some different place.
You had like a live setup.
Yes. We had the whole thing over there, and you guys were in Radio Row. That's why we were separated. I remember that. Yes.
This is really fun for everybody listening.
Yes.
This
is so inside baseball, us talking about our fantasy team all wrapped into one here.
So obnoxious. The one other city I did want to shout out, I don't love. Oh, sorry. What, Brandon?
No, please talk.
Okay.
I best not tell the story. Continue.
Well, now I feel like you should, but we'll convince you in a second. I think Atlanta.
Yeah.
I don't really want to say it because it feels sort of like Atlanta feels like the convention center of places to host a Super Bowl, in that it makes a ton of sense and it's doable and it's a beautiful stadium and it all makes sense, but something about it, you're sort of like even the Georgia-Oregon game this year at Mercedes-Benz that I went to, I was sort of like, well, here we are again. And it works and it's great, but something about, I want something. Atlanta ceases to feel like Atlanta when you're there for a big event for some reason, and I want a place that doesn't get like
swallowed
pushed
up by
aside
the event.
for the event. Yeah,
that makes sense. Well, I'll tell my little story. When I was in Houston, working at Fox, we were with the producers and we're taking an Uber somewhere, and somebody we were working with thought Nick Wright was black. And I was like, hey guys, like, I'm telling you no, right? And we had this little conversation getting into the Uber, and obviously Nick Wright did radio in Houston before he went over to Fox Sports. And the black dude who was driving the Uber like rolled down the window. He said, "What y'all talking about, Nick Wright?" I said, "Yeah." I was like, "This guy thinks he's black," and he was like, "He got a black wife though," and like, he said it like that. And I was just started dying laughing, and I was like, "Boy, he put a stamp on Houston, boy. Nick Wright in Houston. Don't come sideways by Nick Wright in Houston."
I can say Nick Wright's got people out in Houston ready for him there.
That's incredible.
I've never done that with a sports media person. I did for the longest time. I had never looked at him as a prospect. I had thought when this player was coming out that we had a better I thought Chet Holmgren was black because I thought we had a better chance of having a black guy named Chet than a white number 1 overall basketball prospect.
Oh, so you didn't even see dude.
No.
You just was like, where's this Chet Holmgren at?
I was just like he's the number 1 prospect in the class, and I went back and looked. We hadn't it had been since Kevin Love. It was one of those things.
He's one of the whitest people I've ever seen.
He's all knees and elbows. It's truly remarkable. So
Oh my goodness.
that's our top 5 list at GoJo Show on Twitter. Cold weather cities. I am ready for your inundation of hate. But in the meantime, we got what, Brandon?
I'm saying you hate on inclement weather a lot, but Justin Fields looked back on the season and he said his favorite game
The
was
rain
against
game?
the San Francisco 49ers. New team, new coach, new ownership. It was all brand new, and they went out and won the game.
Buddy, if I wanted to pander to football fans, I would talk about how much I love cold weather too.
Ugh, you would do the whole snow game bullshit.
Oh, I talk
Sorry.
about the nostalgia of it. I talk about how this is Chicago football weather and they want to put a dome on our stadium. That's not what this city's about. This city's about grit. It's about braving the elements. It's about the 85 Bears. It's about seeing the mist and the breath and the fog popping up over the helmets. That's the football we grew up on. That's the football the Midwesterners deserve. That's the bullshit that I would sell all these people if I wanted them to believe that I was their quarterback of the future.
Can I ask you guys a question?
Uh-huh.
Please.
Do you think that working in sports media just completely... I feel that I find myself focused so much on logistics and comfort when it comes to the spirit of something being in the cold and it's like, oh, great. I can see where people would love that. And I'm like, how easy is it to get there? And I don't want to be cold because it jades you. Jades. Is that even?
Yeah,
But you get so, I get so preoccupied with the logistics of,
Hey, I think that's part of being a fan too. Because if you're a fan, all you've got is the logistics and then sitting. I always think of that. Do I want to be cold? At least when I'm playing in the cold, eventually I'm going to mostly forget. I'll get warm out there. I'm running around. My internal temperature is going crazy. If I'm a fan and I'm not drunk enough to not feel stuff and my hand warmers run out or all of a sudden I get hit with something like snow or anything like that, I'm just sitting there. I don't get to move around and do stuff. So I'm actually thinking my take is a man of the people take. That's just me.
that's a bet. It's a good take. It's a good take.
You know what's a good take, guys? Finishing on a positive note here. Finishing on a note of friendship. Finishing with this, that, and the third. 3 quick stories to finish off the day here where I asked Brandon the most important question of the day, which is, do you know what time it is, Brandon?
I do, but I'm going to flip it right back on your ass. I have a song that you going to sing because it's right up your alley. And I'm going to need you to lay out when it comes to the chorus. Okay? So
All
that's what I'm going to sneak in my this, that, and the third.
Okay.
Is you ready?
Sure. I stare directly at the sun, but never in the mirror. It must be exhausting, always rooting for the anti-hero.
This, that, and the third.
Said layout for the chorus. Boy,
That was amazing.
I have learned 2 things in this process. 1, Taylor Swift, not in my vocal range. And 2, the drinking I did this weekend has severely affected my vocal output. All of those are ways that I say, lead with kindness, as I ask you to download, subscribe, rate, and review this podcast. Leave us a 5-star rating and a review. And tell me how I did absolutely butchering one of the favorite songs off this album that I had to make sure and double check the words on because I'm a coward as well.
Mike, as I always say, if you can talk, you can sing. If you can walk, you can dance.
Wow.
And I forget the rest of the saying.
Hey, listen, Bob Dylan could technically sing. So if that guy is considered singing, then we're all considered singers.
Yeah, well, he had he had talent in ways that
It wasn't
let's
singing. That's all I'm saying.
This, that, and the third. This, that, and the third.
This, that, and the third.
Mike,
yes?
you did a great job.
Thanks.
You did a great job. I put you on the spot, and I thank you.
Hey, pressure makes diamonds or burst pipes, and I think we were somewhere in the middle. We've got a diamond jutting out of a pipe in a way that's really uncomfortable.
I've never heard the last part of that.
Oh man, yeah. It's listen, that's a tried and true one there. So add that to the list. Sprinkle it into your everyday life. Put it on top of your oatmeal. It tastes good in the morning. Let's talk about this, guys. Carlos Correa is now returning to the Minnesota Twins, reportedly finalizing a 6-year, $200 million contract pending a physical after weeks of discussion to salvage a deal with the New York Mets broke down. Sources with familiar with the situation told ESPN. So essentially what had happened was Carlos Correa, who had been with the Twins this past year, had a good season by all accounts, started slow, finished really strong at the end, ended up getting into this offseason and opting out of the contract that he had signed with the Twins. He had then been offered and agreed to a 13-year, $350 million contract with the San Francisco Giants back on December 13th. Then they raised some concerns about his surgically repaired right leg that he had injured playing minor league ball for the Astros back in the day. He had not missed time for this injury in his 8-year career at the major league level. But they raised some concerns about that long-term deal for a 28-year-old player, yada, yada, yada. So after that happened, he pivoted, and the Mets offered him a 12-year, $350 million contract. And Steve Cohen, their owner, came out, was talking about how this is the guy that was going to put him over the hump. And they're like a $500 million payroll. They're going to be paying luxury tax out the ass, but he doesn't care because he's the owner that's going to deliver the Mets to the promised land. And Carlos Correa is going to be the one to do it. Then they flagged his physical too. And so that wasn't cool. And so now he's apparently going back to Minnesota, who feels like they are inclined to make this physical as amicable as possible for a 6-year, $200 million contract. So in short, over the course of this, Carlos Correa's free agent spree has now lost him $150 million since December 13th in a way that makes me actually feel bad for him, even though he's going to be a guy that makes $33 million a year in this deal.
I just don't quite understand. I want to be like, what's the physical showing up? Because what'd you say, Brandon?
Brandon, you're muted.
I think you're muted.
Sorry. But how bad could his physical be? He was physically in San Francisco about to sign with the Giants, and then they were like, oh, no, never mind.
Yeah. It's like, and then the Mets are like, well, we're willing to do it. And then they're like, wait, actually, I'm so confused. I have absolutely no idea what's going on here.
It's been thoroughly bizarre. Theoretically, I can understand this idea that if you're going to give, and again, I believe he's 28 years old. If you're going to give a 28-year-old a contract that would take him all the way, if the original contract going back to the one the Giants were offering him was a 13-year deal that's going to take him into his 40s, you're probably wanting to say, hey, how is this going to age? And so physical, I always think like the easy physicals that we passed when we were going in college, or like your physical you take where the guy bonks you on the knee with the little rubber thing in the doctor's office. These are probably more akin to the combine physicals where they're going and poking and prodding every bit of this thing to try and find out, hey, is our investment going to hold up over time? But that's sorry. That's just gross.
Oh,
it is. And it's something the NFL has actually floated about changing about the combine, especially for players that have been injured going into it. But for this one and for this kind of, decade-long financial investment, apparently the Giants and the Mets were not willing to take said same risk.
The entire time, Carlos Correa, if you're looking at social media, playing games with his child. Just in full dad mode. And it seems like he was slightly unbothered by it, which I like to see. It could have been a smokescreen, obviously. But listen, I know when you put the dad hat on, that's all you're really focused on. So shouts out to him.
I will say, too, I think there's something that happens is if he passes his physical, I believe there's a clause that vests in his contract that'll increase it by about another $70 million over 4 years.
Oh.
You know what they could have found, actually, now that I think about it? They could have found the buzzer he implanted in his knee to cheat with the Astros.
Okay. Oh man, there it goes. Now we're ready to have the conversation.
Sorry.
Now we're ready to.
But I mean, come on. Also, people forget about Carlos Correa. after he won the World Series in 2017, he proposed to his now wife. If they're still together, I think they're still together.
Wow.
He won the World
That's
Series
big.
and then he dropped down onto one knee and proposed.
Wow. Sports proposal.
Which, look, I do what you're going to do. It feels like an overwhelming amount of celebration to me.
It is a lot.
Yeah,
it's like,
it's like
remember that
focus on
Fiesta
one
Bowl
thing.
one where the Statue of Liberty play from Boise State where the guy came down and immediately proposed to his cheerleader girlfriend right after? It's just a lot. It's a lot in one moment. It feels like you're not giving each moment their just due.
Yeah.
That situation, it seemed like they pulled off pretty well. It's one of the more famous ones ever, but I get your point completely.
Anyway, I feel like, I'm a Red Sox fan, so also who doesn't? Anyway, I feel bad for the guy. I feel like something happened here that I don't quite understand, and I always just want a player to get paid. Like I always want a player to make as much money as humanly possible, and this is perplexing.
Completely. That's what's the bummer about this situation, because it's going to be a crazy free agent story. Like I saw Dallas Braden from Baseball is Dead tweet, you could read it one way, or you could see Jared tweeted about him losing $150 million. He said, or he's the only player to ever almost sign $800 million worth of contract in one offseason with 3 teams. His Wikipedia page is going to be an adventure, because this is a free agent thing, is not quite as crazy as like DeAndre Jordan free agency back with the Clippers and Mavericks fiasco that went on there, where you had the Clippers hold up inside his house playing defense until he could sign at midnight, where that was him going back on the soft verbal that he gave to the Mavs. But this is, to Charlotte's point, a lot more tragic, because it's just a guy and having his body looked at and judged like a meat market and people telling him it's worth about $150 million less.
That's fair, though. I mean, he's 28. And he said that leg was bothering him recently. Okay. Shut your mouth then.
My God. Let's get to that.
And also,
all right, go ahead, Brandon.
Well, I was saying baseball players get paid. Baseball players always get paid. So you're in the right place.
He is making $33 million a year over the course of this 6-year deal. So still definitely getting broke off shorter deal. If anyone wants to pay Charlotte Wilder 6 years and $200
If anyone
million,
wants to pay me, exactly. I'll find a way to spend it.
Let's get to that. As a young person who's got a lot of money, yesterday, January 10th, as the release of this podcast, a very happy birthday to Notre Dame's Marcus Freeman, 37 years old. He is the 9th youngest head coach in college football right now. A happy birthday to him. Friend of the podcast here, incredibly handsome head coach for our football team, who hopefully is going to keep winning a bunch of games.
Happy birthday, Marcus.
I was late with the clapping, so...
And I will just use this platform to again say, in a way that will be uncomfortable when I finally meet the young man, that Notre Dame currently has the best looking head coach and quarterback combination in the history of collegiate football.
True. Can't spot the lie.
I just can't get over the fact he's 37. Like, he's our age.
The first commenter below that tweet, Brett McMurphy was the one that tweeted out the happy birthday tweet I saw, was from DBP The Just, aka Sasquatch, that said, so he's 2 years older than Stetson Bennett. So Stetson Bennett still catching strays out here. So very happy birthday to Coach Freeman. Let's get to the third, though. This is the important conversation I wanted to have with you guys. So Forbes put out a list, according to Reddit, of the 50 most talked about TV shows of 2022. First off, do you guys have any guess what the most talked about TV show of 2022 was?
Stranger Things.
Stranger Things was actually 7th on this list, believe it or not.
Oh, we actually try and get the number one answer.
Okay, hold on. White Lotus?
White Lotus was... White Lotus is 18th on the list. White Lotus is behind somehow The Leftovers, which still has enough of a cult following to be talked about on Reddit.
So I'm in the very wrong ballpark.
That's amazing.
For what it's worth, number one is a show that was very popular in 2022. It was a show released this year, and it was released on a streaming service, if that helps.
Does it?
Oh, wait. I'm almost there. Ted Lasso.
Ooh, good guess.
No. That's going to be 2021's.
Yeah, actually, whoa, not good. Ted Lasso 33rd on the list. So, unfortunately, I can't give you the Family Feud good answer on that one.
Bad. I want to get this so badly.
I know, and to the point where I'm not guessing until I have it. But I
House
don't
of
know.
the Dragon?
House of the Dragon was number 2, Charlotte. House of the Dragon was number 2. So good guess. Good answer. Good answer. 30 points.
Severance?
Yes, Severance is number 1.
I didn't guess that because I thought it was going to be too niche, but then I remembered it was Reddit threads, and people went nuts on Reddit for Severance.
Exactly.
I went nuts on Reddit for Severance.
So the top 5 on this list. Number 1 was Severance. Yes, you should watch it. It's worth your time.
Yes.
Number 2 was House of the Dragon. Number 3 was Barry on HBO.
Ooh,
number 4 was
Barry.
Amazon Video's The Boys. And number 5 was Better Call Saul. I feel like a lot of it with The Boys was the fact that show, especially with Homelander, led the league in new meme and GIF material this year. Homelander was on every sort of meme possible this year. A lot of the reaction shots in the most recent season made for good internet material. So I feel like that's why.
I have to say it's probably because, Barack Obama puts out like his most
I thought you were just going to I thought you were going to stop there and say, Barack Obama? and we were going to be like,
y'all heard Barack
heard
Obama?
of him.
Have you heard of this guy? Barry O.
Barack Obama.
Not from Chicago, from Hawaii. But anyways, he puts out his things that he watched the most of, and he put out The Boys after season 1, and I was like, that's a hell of a bump for a very graphic and grimy show. Like a lot of people are going to turn it on and be like, oh, Barry.
Yeah.
like he sent a lot of people to that show.
Yes, he did. That's a tough one there. Andor number 6, the part of the Star Wars world. Stranger Things 7, Succession 8, Breaking Bad 9, and Rings of Power at number 10, which I know our dear friend Jess Matana has likely watched. I haven't seen it yet. So, those all kind of fit in there. Brandon, you should absolutely watch Severance. That was a good one there.
I think that was the greatest final episode. Greatest season finale of one of the greatest season finales of a TV show I've ever seen.
Wow. All right. I respect it.
I mean, nothing will top the Mad Men series finale for me ever, but this was very good.
Were you a fan of, I never watched this show, but I've seen enough of the discourse around its finale. Did you watch The Sopranos, and did you have an opinion on the series finale of The Sopranos?
I didn't watch The Sopranos, but when the series finale happened, I knew what had happened because I'd seen enough people talk about it. So I've had trouble watching it because I know what.
I think that was a great way to end that series. Honestly, like I did watch Sopranos, and also the whole thing is from his perspective. The last few seasons, we're spending most episodes in his dreams. So when he gets whacked in the end of the season, it goes black. Yeah, he died.
Do you think that's what happened? Because they kind of left it open-ended. We don't know if he got whacked.
Listen, I lived in where did I live? Bloomfield, New Jersey. Shouts out to Anish. Lived in Bloomfield, is from Bloomfield, but that is in Essex County, right down the street from where that was filmed. Essex County is all that Sopranos area, that ice cream shop was that they filmed it in. It was right down the street from my apartment when I was living out there. I feel like I got the vibes. He died. He got shot.
He died.
Wow. Spoiler alert for everyone out there. Spoiler alert for everyone who made it to the end of this podcast here and got The Sopranos ruined for them by Brandon Newman. If you enjoyed the rest of this podcast that was largely spoiler free, make sure you download, subscribe, rate, and review GoJo wherever you get your podcast. Leave us a 5-star rating and a review. Make sure you check out the DraftKings YouTube channel as well, and the GoJo with Mike Golick Jr. playlist. At The Wilder Things on Twitter is where you can check out Charlotte. You can read her over at Fox Sports on the internet. Brandon, Charlotte, thanks so much, guys.
Truly always a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Bye. See you later.
We'll talk to you guys tomorrow. Boom. Money in the Bank.